So welcome back again. Hopefully you caught that first part. This is a special meeting for October 5th, and we're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and I have asked Arthur Schmidt, a member of the public, to come up and help lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. Now, for our special meetings, we generally do not have oral communications at the beginning of this meeting, and we won't today. But I do like to set the stage of expectations, and that is, as your board chair, we do expect civility and respect given to everybody in the room. And to that, I always add a touch of kindness. I think it helps set the tone. And I choose somebody from either history or current day that I pull a quote from on kindness. So today I have chosen Jean-Jacques Rousseau. He was an 18th century German philosopher, writer, and composer. And here's what he had to say. What wisdom can you find that is greater than kindness? And with that, we will open up to our first and only appointment. And Heather, would you please read that?
1:30 p.m. discussion and board direction regarding the fit test for county administrative departments at the historic Yaney Avenue Courthouse building.
All right.
Good afternoon.
Tracy
Riggs,
okay,
County
over here.
Administrator's Office. So we are thankful for the time today to meet with your board to go over these future plans for the historic courthouse. It is important, we know that. I'm also looking to the board for just to kind of give you an idea of what we're talking about, total cost if we want to move forward with this, just so you know in moving forward what we are committing ourselves to. So far, you may remember your board had told the staff that we could use up to $2 million for internal loans. As we've done in the past, we pay them back when we have fund balance. To this point, we have not used any internal loan. We've been able to do the fit test and some of this other documents using either CARE Act or ARP or capital monies that your board has set aside. However, Mo did give me about a week ago the estimate for the elevator. The estimate for the elevator is $1.639 million. Now that is estimated to be about 1,000 square feet. We have not put it out to bid, but I want to make sure that your board is aware of some of these costs as they come in. Then the estimate we have for construction documents and construction management was about 1.6 to 1.7 million. So between the two, we're looking at about 3.4 million before going to construction. So again, what I'm looking to you is to know that when we move forward with construction documents, that your board is making a commitment to move through the entire process, and that we're expecting, and I'm going to look over at Mo, I think about 12 months to get the final construction documents ready to go out. That gives us 12 months also to continue really going and hitting Sacramento and doing all those things we always do to look for money. This is a beautiful historic building. We are doing everything we can to maintain the character and the integrity of this building. And it is my hope that there may be some funding out there for that very purpose. That, you know, we're looking at a building that opened 1899, 1898. It's beautiful, and we are really excited about it. Again, we're going to do a presentation just for fit test, and then we have some ideas. Then what we'd like to do is actually move to the table workshop style, go over some of what your board, your questions, get those questions answered, get feedback from those who are here to provide you some feedback, and then get some direction on moving forward with conception. This is meant to be conceptual. We are not talking operations. We're not talking staffing. We're also not talking about the interior part, like what is the board dais going to look at? Where is your board clerk going to sit? Where are county council and CAO? Right now, we're just talking about the construction and design only of the building itself. We will then, over the next 12 months, as they work on those construction documents, start having conversations with you. What does that look like to you? If something is being moved, where else might we want to place it in the building to memorialize that? So those are the conversations that will come later. But right now, it really is about the building itself, and mostly what you're seeing is putting up walls and are in areas that we can put up walls, because we're learning there are some areas that we cannot change, and that's fine. We're working with that. So with that being said, I will kick it over to Mo and Lionakis to give you their presentation.
Great, thank you, Tracy. Mo Frank, Capital Projects Director, and as the county administrator said, it's a lovely building, and we would like to, as a community, we look at it, and it is an icon for us. And already going through the building with it not being used, we're already starting to see leaks and things, and we really want to preserve it for the future. And so back in April of 2021, your board directed staff to look at several of our departments and several of our buildings to look to see if we could hire an architectural firm to do what's called a test fit. Would certain departments and programs go into those buildings? And one of those buildings was the Yaney Historic Courthouse. And so with that, what we want to do today is have the staff from Lionakis, Brandon Rocca next to me, and then Mike Davey give you just a brief rundown of the fit test for this building as was directed by county staff at that point in time. So with that, Brandon and Mike.
Thanks, Mo. As she mentioned, my name is Brandon Rocca. I'm project manager for Lionakis. I've been here from the beginning of this project, originally working with Eric, now working with Mo. So we did an extensive process of meeting with, we've met with all your board members, we met with all these different departments to try to extract what are the needs of your workflow and whatnot, and how we would incorporate that into the Yaney test fit. So what's up on the screen is kind of, you're seeing the first floor here, the existing building on the left-hand side. We approach this with minimalizing what we're tearing down. There's definitely things in the building that we cannot touch, whether it's due to historical value or the structure of the building. And then, of course, trying to be mindful of the cost of trying to go in and gut it and rebuild. So on the right is what we came up with, Eric, and county administrator was kind of down in this corner. That this changed. It's changed so many times. Sorry. we had the admin analysts over in here. We had OES back over in here, and kind of isolated was the capital project director here on the first floor. Of course, things change and priorities change, but that's where we were with this. Moving up to the second floor again, we were just trying to take a minimalist approach. Those of you that know the building, there was a mezzanine added to it, which had a stair coming from the second floor. We made the call of trying to utilize as much of the space as we can. The staircase is not really necessary since there's another way to get to the mezzanine. But again, trying to minimize how much we're tearing down, and as you can see, a lot of it's interior walls that are either not original or don't have historical significance. So on the second floor is where we put the county council down here on the bottom side, and at the time we were trying to put HR in here. That is no longer the case. HR is going to, I think, stay over here. We've done a separate test fit for HR, actually utilizing some of the area we're sitting in here today. And then we had some legal clerks and library conference room office space, which I think this is the original records room, for anybody that's familiar with that building. Moving on to, how do I get to the second page? There we go. So moving on to the mezzanine. Sorry, I haven't used Adobe in a long time. So those of us that have been in the mezzanine know it's if you're too tall, you want to duck him when you walk around in there. But it had some, I forget what it was originally purposed for, but a handful of offices, a little storage room, and like I mentioned, that stair came in here. And on the top side of the page was the original court's IT space. which is no longer being used for that. So what we thought would be a good thing for the mezzanine is to not house people there that is going to be at their office all day long. It's just kind of a squatty space. So we thought it'd be best for, more of like a break room, a temporary place to be utilized, but something that is needed within the building. And then, of course, with the elevator, we needed to eat up some of this other side for the elevator to get in here. And then, of course, left some space for whatever IT equipment you guys are going to need in that space. Moving up to the upper floor, which I think is the most significant floor, because it was the main big courtroom and all that. Again, trying to approach it very minimally. The thought was to try to open up the jury assembly and the actual courtroom to try to make it one big boardroom, just based off of what we heard people count needs. As I think you guys all know, is when you have a big gathering here, sometimes you have overflow sitting out there in the lobby. So the thought was to not rip the whole wall out, but open it up so where it could be put into one big room. The reason we don't want to rip it all the way out is there's some historical significance of how the ceiling integrates with it, the wainscot that wraps around the courtroom. So there's places we just need to tie it in to make it look like it was meant to be and not just, someone went in there with a chainsaw and cut it up. The other thing we were trying to do with this floor is to get the Board of Supervisors, and the goal that was given to us is try to get you guys located in a place to where would minimize cross traffic with the public. You guys get approached sometimes outside of here, and you have to listen to people's ideas and thoughts. So unfortunately, the offices were a little small, but it really more met the needs of kind of giving you guys kind of a private suite off this end. And of course, we were going to put some of the clerks up here. The other thought we had is we had this conference, what we also called an overflow. So if this room was packed, that your overflow could come over to this conference room. The plan was to put some TVs in here so whoever was in that space could be seeing, just like what we're seeing, in here today. So that's a quick high-level overview of where we are. I know we're going to be rethinking this a little bit more with Mo, but is there any questions that the board have at this moment?
Any questions of the board at this time? We'll have time.
Yeah, I don't have any. I'm going to wait till our table
Okay.
discussion.
Any questions for the presenter?
So with this one, so on the very top floor there, how many, somebody keeps turning down my volume. I think they're trying to silence District 2. Okay, can you hear me now? Okay, so how many conference rooms are there on the top floor now?
One big, large one that's up here at the top, which was going to double up as overflow.
Okay. Yeah, because I have one that has an office. And then what now I see the hatched line for the board chambers there. Are you recommending that's a existing wall to the jury deliberation room? So how is that depicted? Is that wall still there, or is that
So you'd see about, a couple feet at the each end that would go all the way down, and then up at the top, we're going to have to keep a header going across because the ceilings are different heights, and the ceiling in the courtroom actually has some decorative covings that come from the ceiling to the wall. So it's going to be more like kind of a cased opening, if that makes sense.
And what's the purpose for taking that wall down? Is it for additional seating?
It was to get the amount of seating that was requested.
Okay. And what was the amount of seating that was requested?
I don't have that off the top of my head.
Okay.
I do know that with that opened up, that room is smaller than the room we're sitting in today, square foot wise,
When
Okay.
it's opened, it's
Yep.
smaller than this one?
by a couple hundred square feet.
Wow.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any other questions. We will have time for the public to comment, but I'm thinking that we're going to go down to do the workshop style work now. So the board and staff and the architects will all join at this table, and we'll be provided with microphones, right?
We will. I'm just wondering, Mo, is there a way, I know that everyone has a copy. If you don't have a copy of the most current, they are on the back. But can we put these also on the screen? Could you have these in a PDF?
Yes, we do.
where
Actually, we
those
can
up
put them
too?
on the
So,
screen. So
that will help.
what the county administrator is referencing is then staff took the test fit and worked with the various departments that are depicted in the building and kind of then, again, keeping in the theme of trying not to change walls very much because anytime we touch something, the cost of it goes up. And then there are certain walls, so like as you see on this kind of draft presentation from staff, is anything in yellow, and there's a few of the walls that are not highlighted that should be, are ones in which we cannot touch, we should not touch, whether there's a historical significance to them or whether structurally we shouldn't be doing it. There are some opportunities for us to close in those walls, but not to either make the enclosures that are currently in it any larger. So absolutely. So as we go floor by floor, Tracy, we can absolutely have this on the screen as we talk about it.
I think Supervisor Brandon has a question.
Yeah, thank you. One that just wanted to ask here with that. Understanding that the yellow walls, whether that's because of load bearing or historic preservation, can't be taken out or substantially modified. I wanted to ask about doors. It seems like if it's structural, that's something that can be built in that would not basically limit its capacity to bear weight. If it's historical, it could be done to look exactly like the other doors. So I just don't understand why those might not be
So
allowed.
this building is a unreinforced masonry building. And once you start touching its structure, it can balloon to more than just not necessarily, hey, I want to put an opening right here and just reinforcing that opening. It could trigger to potentially seismic retrofit the whole structure, which is just going to balloon cost. So talking with my structural engineer, he has said steer clear of it if you can. If they really want to do it and pay for it, then that's their decision. But, and the other thing is the historical aspect of it. As any of us have been in this building, this main corridor has some beautiful finishes in it, and trying to replicate them and make them match and not look like.
Can you explain the masonry thing? So is that rubble filled in the inside, or?
So these walls are actually 3 wythes of brick. So a brick wall is considered a wythe, and they're actually 3 wythes. And, without tearing them apart, I don't know how often they turn the bricks, but it's basically there's no steel in there. It's just masonry and mortar holding it together. Can't build that way anymore. You haven't been able to build that way in a long time. But, in a seismic event, unreinforced masonry is probably one of the dangerous buildings to be in. Luckily, our conversations with Brian at the building department, where we're sitting, he doesn't feel like a seismic retrofit is required out the gate. But of course, if we start modifying with the structure, then we're going to have those kind of conversations.
Okay. I definitely would like to hear that conversation specific to not talking about a door on every corner, but 1 or 2 selective doors. If it already is passing, it seems, a seismic retrofit, discussions on that. It's just something I'm interested to hear more on.
Yeah, definitely, and that's our plan of attack when we do move forward. Is Brian was actually on the interview for the working drawings on this, and that was something that came up in the interview. Is that one of the first things that he wants to do with us is sit down when we kind of know the direction we're wanting to go, so make sure we're heading down the right path right out the gate.
I'm just wondering, are we getting too much in the granular right now? This is a fit test and not necessarily specifics like doors. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. We would like to keep this at high level because we haven't, as Tracy just mentioned, we haven't even gotten to that next phase of the contract. We really want to get your board's take in regards to, is this something you want us to proceed with? And if going down this path, then are we able to afford it, and do we want to proceed with the next step of this building, in which we will then start talking about those kind of details.
Yeah, we'll get there. Okay, thank you. All right, so let's take a 5-minute break so that we can kind of set up this table, and then we'll reconvene. Thank you. All right, welcome back, everyone. Our CAO is going to start this off.
Okay, all right. So this was meant to be workshop style because we know, looking at these plans, we need to have conversations with the board. Again, they're conceptual still, so what we're looking for, Mo and I, is that the conceptual design of what we've laid out so that we can begin working with the architects to see, first of all, can they do this, or can we do this? And then moving into the actual construction documents, there will be future questions, but there are specific things that we need your input on. The ones I think that you'll be most interested in will be the third floor. And that will be, does your board want all of the offices, really where I think it was the presiding judge used to, his or her offices used to be? Or do you want those offices to be a bit bigger, as in the secondary alternative option you have here, and have two that would be more out, kind of where the elevator would come in and out of? The other one is, obviously, is the Board of Supervisors chambers. When we had originally worked, it was looking to try and get as many square foot as we can, as you heard. Even if you take part of that wall out, it will still be smaller than this building. However, the reality is, very few times do we really fill the boardroom, right? We have some capacity. The other thing to think about is, should your board not want to remove that wall at all, that we have like the CRC. So when we have events that we think will be much larger, maybe a bigger turnout, we could move those meetings to a different venue. So just something to think about as you're working through. But for me, I think those are probably the two biggest parts that the board really want to weigh in. I will tell you that right now, your board is aware this floor does not have a break room for staff at all, and it causes some issues for us. While there may be some concerns from some thinking about that mezzanine area being kind of short, your staff is very excited about having one area that's a large area that could be used where everyone can gather and have a meal together, or just relax away from their office and away from maybe where people are coming in and out of the building. Because we all know, if you're sitting in the foyer and someone comes in and they see you, they're going to ask you a question because you're the one that can help them. So it does give them a private area for a break. So that's the majority. I mean, the other ones are mostly conceptual. There's a few other things we're looking at, like maybe the restroom area on the first floor. Is there a way to make those offices a little bit bigger? And I'm trying to think what's up right now. So yeah, if you look on, oh no, this is. That's the first floor. That's the first floor. The restroom. So on the top left, where there are those restrooms we've talked about, can you maybe make those a bit smaller and make those 3 offices, make them a little bit larger so they're not so small? So those are things that we'll work with the architects to see if that's even a possibility. But right now, it's conceptual. But we really need specifically, do you want that wall up? Do you want that wall down in the board chambers? And then for you to understand what that might mean. And then your offices are the other one. Are we talking about wanting smaller offices with the overflow area where there are 2 built in for you now? Or are you wanting bigger offices and not having the 2 overflow areas? And then I will defer to Mo and their team from there.
So we're going to start on the first floor, and Mo's going to lead us through the question points or decision points.
So as we go through this discussion in this work session, I ask that your board put on different lenses. Number one, as the Board of Supervisors. So operationally, how does this building work for you? And especially, as Tracy said, the third floor. The second lens is just operational. So both for the Board of Supervisors, the County Council, and the County Administrator's Office, how does this work as far as looking at our staff and making sure our staff has the resources it needs to do the job? How are we able to interact with one another, and how are we able to interact with the public? The next lens that I want you to put on as you are walking through the different floors is, how does this building relate to the public? You know, we talk about our gold standard of service, and we talk about making sure and providing a building in which we want the citizens and people visiting us to come in, feel welcomed, and feel like they can find the answers that they're searching for, or the people that they're looking for. So on the first floor, as you can see over on this side, is the opening for the main entry. And on this whole first floor is part of the county administrator's office. So you have an analyst section over here that we talked about. We have an open meeting area here along with the assistant county administrator. Over here is nice. You have the deputy county administrator and two of the analysts on the next section. And what we've done, as you see with the different floors, is kind of grouped staff by discipline or what they're doing, or the adjacencies match what their responsibilities are. So for example, all of the people in this area they report directly to the deputy county administrator, and that they are doing work together that's alike. Over on this side of the building, we have the section for our Office of Emergency Services. So there is a conference room here along with the Assistant Director of OES and with her staff. So again, we've been grouping things together. On each of the floors, as we mentioned, we've come to a conclusion of where the new elevator is going to be. It's going to be on the front side of the courthouse building. And on each page, you'll be able to see the access for the citizens as if they choose to use the elevator, where it will open up and how people will access to it. On this floor, as Tracy mentioned, there's one restroom over here in the CIO section, and then up for discussion in the future is the use of the two restrooms over here. They're oversized and big, and so that'd be something, as we noted, we're really trying to look at increasing the size of the analyst area on this side of the building. The office space is not quite what I would want for them. I would like a little more space for them, and so that's something, if we were proceeding, that as your staff member would recommend to you to try to see what we can do to capitalize on that and maybe adjust the restroom. So I'm here to entertain any questions on floor number 1.
Are we doing questions or just?
Yes.
Or
We're going to go by floor, so do you have questions on the
you
first
wanted,
floor?
I know you had some,
I don't have questions.
but you have some, you have some comments, I know.
Is this on? This was one of the areas that I wanted to see investigated for a door. It's in the back of to the right analyst office across from the deputy county administrator. The reason being, is it?
So, I'm sorry, Supervisor Brannon?
Yep, right there.
So right here?
Yep.
Okay.
That not being there means we have to rely on the door to the left side. That door means that this storage area in the hallway is somewhat limited for use, and it also takes up a lot more walkway space, leaving these analysts with just 100 square foot, basically offices.
So
Hold on a second.
Is there a way, easy way
Yeah.
we can address it? Or?
Mike, can we, put
These are
an arrow to it? No, it's okay. Thank you for that. We appreciate it. So it's okay. Mike can do that for you. If we could, that would be great, Heather. Can we?
Let's get the cursor out there so they can see what we're looking at.
Or zoom into the area. I can try to do a better job explaining the landmarks.
We should have a cursor on it so everybody is on the same
People can see
page.
it. Oh, thank you, Mike.
Whatever's gonna be quick.
So, right.
So the two struggles with that, one, it is one of the structural walls, so we'd have to analyze it for that. The other thing is, that wing of the building, when I say that wing, this right wing, actually used to be a recessed floor where the boiler originally was, so the floor level is actually about a foot lower too. So that's something else we would have to figure out, trying to put a door through there.
I guess I'll just go through it however we want to do this stuff. I think there is redundancy for the bathrooms, and we have individual ones upstairs. I think the one on the left makes the most sense to keep. It's smaller. The one on the right is equivalent to about 3 office spaces in size, 6 urinals, like 5 different toilets. It's quite large. I'd rather see this front area be what can be a break room and a cafe, where we would operate some type of concession. And I think that's a perfect spot that would have the utilities in it.
I'm sorry, Supervisor Brandon, where did you want the cafe area?
This would be in the larger restroom to the right. It's currently a conference room, but where the elevator exits, it seems to be an appropriate spot. And then lastly, the only other thing I wanted to bring up with it, I think that it's maybe unnecessary to have a conference room there on the bottom right of the first floor, specific with OES, that might be office space that can be utilized to increase some of the other sizes. I'd like to know where alternatively we'd be able to use some of that space.
Without moving walls.
Correct. The green is new walls, correct?
That's correct.
Right. So it would be looking at, I mean, overall, I'd like to see a lot of these offices set at about maybe 120 minimum square foot standard. Below that, it's getting really small, and especially with some of our more senior staff, 150, 160, and ones who are regularly having meetings, managing maybe 200. Some of these at the management level are getting that. I think some of the others are between 79 and 100, and that's pretty small. So where we can utilize and cannibalize some of the space to increase it, it might mean moving something out of the building. That's something I'd like to see explored.
So, okay, so are there other comments on the floor one from any of the supervisors? Okay.
Were you finished? Okay. So I'll just start where I kind of am in agreement, although in conceptually, but not necessarily with the details, but to keep it high level, where Supervisor Brandon was referencing the restrooms. I was more thinking swapped where the larger restroom would be converted into 2 restrooms, half for, but again, those are details. I don't know what the cost or the feasibility of doing that would be, but if that were a possibility and it was, and the money factor of it made sense, utilizing the smaller restroom as additional office space or expanding the existing offices there, turning the larger restroom into 2 restrooms, men and women's room, and then, looking at the feasibility of having some kind of concessionaire there, kind of as to me, that's like a second tier requirement, as long as we have the office spaces. And just kind of generally, I'm actually okay with the small offices. I think it's, when you're talking about a historic building and minimalizing the number of walls that you have to change and the structural components that you have to cut into or alter in any way, to me, that takes supremacy over having office sizes that to us in the modern age would be more comfortable. I think it's a sacrifice that we make if we're occupying a historic building, that some of the offices are going to be kind of small and funky. That's just how people built them back in those days. And we need to embrace that, I guess. The only other element that I was looking for that I didn't see is on the first floor entryway. I think one of the goals that we're trying to achieve here is that this is going to be a living, breathing, functioning public space where the people's business will be conducted. And so we'll be having people coming into the front entryway for a variety of purposes, whether they're coming to Board of Supervisors meeting, county council, administration, whether they're involved with some kind of special project. There's 10 different reasons why people would want to come here. And right now, the way it's laid out, they would come into this entryway, the central corridor, and not really know where to go. I mean, obviously, we could have signage directing people to the elevator, but it's a little bit off out of the way. It's not really intuitive where it's located. And so having some space that's parallel to the direction of the flow of people coming into the main corridor where there could be a desk for either an interpretive person there that's whether they're greeting people, directing them to different departments, whether they're there to get information about the building as a historic space, multi-purpose, I guess, desk. It would basically be replacing what the function of the original security entrance served. You would walk through, you'd get your, take your belt off and your wallet, and the bailiff would tell you which courtroom you needed to go to. That's no longer going to be there, and so something has to replace that. So that's the one function that I was looking for that I didn't see.
So Supervisor Campbell, do you see that more in here?
Mike.
Oh, sorry. No, go that way. But you just want in the front. Okay, thank
We're not
you.
gonna build that into plans, that's what we talked about. That would be like a desk we would put in. Yeah, so what, we had talked about Supervisor Campbell was that space is really large. We would have room to add that in, but I don't think that's something we necessarily need the architects to work on because it's a space we would do, but that staff will consider that as we continue moving forward. Does that work?
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
that's fine for me. If that's an idea that's palatable, then.
Yeah, and that'll be operational, and we'll get to that. Just the other thing I want to make, you had, both supervisors hit on this, is the smaller offices, part of that is, that's why you see so much conference space, is there may be smaller workspaces, but more spaces when they're meeting with their partner agencies and collaborators where they can go into. So that's why you're seeing maybe 100 square foot for office space, because if they need to meet with someone, they can, and that's why you're seeing so much of that room, just to answer and kind of give that out there for you.
And then, I was just gonna clarify in the bathrooms too. I guess just to make the bathroom situation clear, I would say that the amount of space designated for the bathrooms is probably excessive, and so if there are ways to better utilize that space, I'm open to that. So I'll leave to you the specifics of that. Thank you.
Okay, I think this one may have already been captured, but in the OES space to the right center of the diagram here, correct? Moving the conference room wall over to lessen the amount of office space and increase the amount of conference room space. So roughly to the edge of that window. Correct. And then I concur with Supervisor Campbell on what is now currently the men's room. That's the larger of the restrooms. I think that somehow that could be divided up into two separate restrooms, men and women. And then the other restroom that is off to the left in the top left corner of the diagram, that could be eliminated, thus perhaps increasing the office space for those 4 offices, or it could be utilized for another purpose, but I don't think we need the restroom there, is what I'm saying. I measured my own office, and I'm at about 125 square feet, so, and it works just fine. I don't see the need for having 150 plus square foot offices for some of the staff. And I'm not trying to deny them space, but workability, my office works out just fine. And the only other item was dropping down to the left of the elevator where it currently shows conference room. And again, this is something that can be decided later, but that space, I'd be interested in some sort of different there instead of conference room. That's all I have.
Why do you want something different than a conference room?
Well, I like the idea of, and again, we're getting into more operational, stuff because the space is there, but, it could be part of a coffee kiosk of some sort or similar.
So I'm all for minimizing costs, and if it doesn't, I also see that the largest restroom, if we were going to change it into 2 restrooms, you have a space for a door. one right outside of the elevator and one where it is. I think that would be the most cost-effective way of doing that. You know, the office spaces, I like the idea of increasing the amount of conference room space because, you know, we do in this, in government work, we do confer and we have a lot of partners, especially for Tuolumne County. That's how we get things done. It's not just all Tuolumne County personnel. We work with nonprofits and other government agencies. So having the conference rooms and the space, we're struggling right now. Finding space sometimes when everybody seems to want to meet at the same time. So I'm all for as much conference space as we can. And you know, some of the analysts that we have on the third floor, they're in cubies, they're in cubicles. And I don't know if they're 6 by 6, 8 by 8, 9 by 9, they're no bigger than that. So that's somewhere between 36 and 81 square feet. So 125, 109 is still bigger. Even 91 is still bigger than a cubicle that they have now. So I am of the mind that we don't need the big office spaces. Even when we get to the third floor, that'll be my stance. And I think that's all I want to say about the first floor.
What I would like to do, remember, we're going to be giving direction to the architects on what we're going to move forward on. We will need some consensus from your board as we go through each floor about exactly what we're planning to do with some of these walls or not. Like, for example, are we making the larger restroom and the conference room all open for a concessionaire? Or are we keeping the conference room and minimizing the restroom? So these are some of the things as they're going forward, we have to give them some direction. Otherwise, we're talking about, you know, asking them to do multiple sets of plans, which is going to be costly.
I have a question along those lines. So brass tacks, would making those changes to the restroom increase the cost of the project? Significantly?
So the original plan was to keep both these restrooms and redoing both of them. So restrooms are generally the most expensive part of the building. If we eliminate, you know, we talked about men or women's, but the women seems to be the consensus I'm hearing. So I would say that turning this into office space is going to be cheaper than to rebuild it as a restroom. But, you know, we'd still have that cost over here, but I think that's there no matter what.
But we would still have to, and we still have to redo this bathroom anyway.
Right.
I wanted to ask about this wall. You mentioned that there were some areas that are structural, basically the thick walls. They're not all highlighted yellow, but the thicker, the more difficult, and this is a thick wall that would have to be renovated substantially.
So since we haven't torn it apart, my gut is telling me that is a plumbing chase wall, and that's why it's shown thicker, is to get all the plumbing in there. So I do know for sure the yellow walls are the structure, because I can't chase that all the way up.
Okay, I'm just comparing that if we wanted to not remove as much wall as possible, that seems to be a more expensive wall to remove to adjust the office space, whereas this could be not necessarily removing walls, but changed.
I cannot confirm that for sure, but I would say that's probably not the case.
I was just going to make a brief comment on, if this restroom were to be divided, if you drew a line straight across here and then had men, women, or women, men, you know, I don't know.
I think the best concept I heard is to divide it vertically and get a new door over here is probably going to be the solution.
The solution for it. This would be ultimately.
And I'm trying to remember, is that what you were supportive of? Okay.
Put a door here, right outside the door.
Is that,
No.
no? Okay. Well, you have a consensus.
We have 3. Okay, so we will go with that change. And then from that, then I'm hearing that we can eliminate this restroom.
This is all subject to public comment, and what I'd like to do is move to floor 2 and then invite the public to comment before we move to floor 3.
Did you get consensus on this?
Yes.
No, this one right here too.
No, they didn't. They wanted to wait for public comment.
Yeah,
We need to go back to it.
we're going to do floor 1 and 2 together.
So now we're moving on to the second floor, and on the second floor is the remaining of the CAO's office along with county council. And basically, the floor is really divided by one side being county council and the other side being the CAO's office. So if we just start and do counterclockwise, you have county council's main office here, along with 2 of her deputies. Moving across the way, and again, trying to, just like we did in the first floor, try to bundle our group like disciplines and really pay attention to the adjacencies that were needed. The next area, we have 2 deputy counsel's office along with their support staff and storage area. What was very important to them is then having access, they'll have direct access from their areas to the law library and conference room that we have there. We're going to, right now, staff's recommendation to you is to split that room in half. There is some historical counter and some historical bookcases in the room. As much as possible, be able to keep those at least inside the room. We need to make the room efficient and effective. We need to move the at least historical counter from where its original location is. On the other side, or the flip side of the building, as I said, is the rest of the county administrator's office. So off the main corridor, you have the executive clerk, the executive assistant, and the county administrator. Then there's some areas in here that you'll see on this floor. There's a vault in the corner on one of the offices of the deputy county council. And on this side of the building, right off of where the county administrators and her executive staff will be sitting, is a storage area. And again, this area was a vault. It is actually thicker than most of the other areas. We'd like to maintain it as is. And then there's a room in the back that we will looking at making a restroom. Next to that area, we grouped another set of county administrators' staff, and that's a senior analyst and another analyst and a capital projects director. These 3 people working in coordination together. One is the senior analyst who is working right now on homeless coordination issues, but also is starting to work with me on construction projects. The other analyst right next door to this area is Leah, who is our contracts and procurement. And so it's a nice symmetry between the 3 of us that work really closely together. So that's basically what you have as far as the second floor. So here to entertain questions.
So from my perspective, I wouldn't look for any changes to what's shown here, other than some cosmetic issues and maybe where to put this counter, on the one law library section.
Yeah, and I concur with Supervisor Goldenberg. I'm happy with the minimal wall changes here to create the office space. Minor tweaks here and there, but again, kind of going into the operations area, I think we need to be really sensitive about how the south conference rooms are laid out, and there is a lot of historic fixtures in there that need to be preserved, and what that's going to look like, I think, will need to be another discussion.
One overall thing, walking around, I believe there's 8 conference rooms in this building, and I think that's entirely too many. There's a few that are small, and we should try to consolidate them to ones we can have modern AV systems. The board chambers, when it's not in session, also serves as one. I think that'd be the 9th, and that we should be able to reduce that. My main comments for this floor, I think, would be related to this middle, kind of upper right section, that I think just doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me, the way that it's all laid out. I would recommend that from the elevator, I wish I had anyway, from the elevator to the right, this wall just simply be extended, and that would allow for both the analyst and capital projects director offices to be substantially larger. That, since this would be then an open lobby, that is where the executive clerk would be, and moving the senior analyst over to where the executive clerk currently is.
I kind of got lost there too, but I like the plans as they're laid out at this point. And I wouldn't, you didn't really talk about the historical counter that's in the law room, right here. I don't know what that is. If that's there now, okay.
Yeah, it's facing this way.
Facing that way, it crosses
So-
both rooms.
Yeah, in the way it's laid out here, it's moved, but
It'll, okay. Yeah, so that is movable, so it could, okay. All right, so I don't have any changes that I'm suggesting. What did you hear from our board that needs clarification?
Right, I think we have consensus in regards to no changes for this floor. So that's what I heard from 3 out of 4 of you, so that was the consensus. Okay.
So at this time, I think we'll go back to the first floor and open it up to public comment. And where are we going to
I'll
have?
bring a mic to them.
Okay, great. So people can stand up, and Michael will come to you from behind there, and you can make your comments or ask your questions. Thank you.
All right. So on the first floor, let me get it here. The restrooms, I guess, are they current restrooms now? Yes. They're current restrooms, so keep that in mind. I would say if they're multi-purpose restrooms, are we going to keep multi-purpose restrooms? I think that should be thought about. Or are we going to change them to single use? If they're changed to single use, then you can make them smaller, like a couple people had suggested. So if you make them single use, I would say move the conference room back into the longer restroom area, and then create the restrooms right outside the elevator in that square. And then you have them all right outside the elevator and right outside the stairs. So, and then also, that leads you to the next floor, which would be a great idea for the next floor too. Take that same spot and put the restrooms in the same spot on the second floor, and do the same thing. And then I think Jaron suggested you have too many conference rooms, so you could move those 3 offices into a conference room over there, correct? And it would probably save you money having the restrooms on the same spot on both floors. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. There is a restroom already here.
There's plumbing.
Plumbing.
I gotta remember, because this one is not here. That one is there, right? So the reasons on this second floor, just so you know, the restrooms on this floor are where near in the county council's office, that's already a restroom. Already there, so it would just need to be update the, probably maybe the plumbing and the fixtures. On the other side, there is already plumbing in there. It's not a restroom right now, but there is already a sink in that area and some plumbing. So that's why we kept them as restrooms.
I would just say the other thing to consider on your second floor, it's not as likely you'll have as much public on the second floor as you will on the first and the third either. Just as we think about cost of adding those restrooms in there rather than having the two single that would be shared amongst the floor. Just something to consider.
So do we have other public comment on floors 1 and or 2?
Hello, I'm Andy Merrill. I'm a Sonora City Council member. I really love the general idea of turning this into a living building. I lived in Boston for 5 years, and I got to see some of, those famous, I think one of the most beautiful parts of American democracy was the public house, the meeting place where, all members of the public were welcome to come and share ideas. So I guess my one desire I would love to see is, and I think Supervisor Brandon brought it up, and Supervisor Campbell, was like the idea of a concession place, but not just a concessionaire. Make it a truly desirable destination to go to, and say have a coffee, or I mean, obviously serving alcohol in a government building might be a step too far, but. I loved those taverns, those public houses on the East Coast, and that to me like really embodied. And maybe I'm waxing poetic, but it was a beautiful concept. And the reason I say that is there's been so many open mics starting in the county lately, and I think it would be really awesome. We always have oral communications at the beginning of like council meetings and board of supervisors meetings, but what if we like totally flipped that script and had public-led sessions to where the supervisors could attend as the public, and we could either perform or share ideas, share poetry, have like philosophical nights. So that's just really my suggestion, and I think if you did view it as like an opportunity to be a revenue generator, you could also take advantage of the city of Sonora's higher sales tax to help with upkeep and maintenance costs. And honestly, I'm just a little jealous, being a lowly council member. Like, I wish that we had the ability to pull something like this off. So at the very least, having that public meeting place, maybe I could schedule some appointments there to meet with some of my constituents and share a coffee or a mocktail or something. But yeah, I just hope there is that component of public, commerce, culture, like a little commercial hub as part of this building, because I think that could really set a shining example for other rural counties with historical buildings like this, that they should be a living space. We should be inviting the public in. It should be comfortable in that, like not just to meet with our government officials, but to genuinely just spend time there because it's a nice place to be. So those are my only comments, nothing specific, but just something I wanted to see as a general concept.
Thank you. Anybody else? First floor, second floor? Not seeing any. So we'll move on to the third floor. Do we have to finish the first floor?
Yes.
Oh, what do we need to make decisions on?
So staff needs direction. Staff needs direction
Oh.
on this area right here in regards to what would you like to do with the restrooms? Yes. I'm hearing, I got consensus that you want to divide this restroom into two. Do you want to eliminate, then I don't believe there's a need for this restroom here. So with that, what would you like to do with that space?
If I could make a recommendation on that, there's this half wall that's in the middle of that restroom right there. If that was extended, one, we could do what I think the board had mentioned is potentially reclaiming a lot of the top left bathroom. That would put a bathroom over here next to the elevator, as Arthur had mentioned. I think that's a very good idea. And leave this as a space that could be a concession type place with utilities for some type of food preparation, just as a concept.
So I thought, yeah, okay.
This corner.
Right, I'm trying to get decisions on this corner space. Okay, thank you.
So it looks like if it's not going to be utilized as a restroom, our only other options are conference room or additional office space. Is that? Okay, or concession. I would vote for more office space. And Yeah, or possibly extending the existing offices, but, yeah. It's a plumbing wall.
Yeah, I think it's just a plumbing wall.
If there's no bathroom, then
It should be able to be removed.
yeah, because if there's plumbing back there and we remove the restroom, then the need for the plumbing's no longer there, and so it makes it. So I would tend to favor more office space. I do kind of share the view that, that there's probably more conference room space than is necessary. It's just a conceptual thing for me that I'd like to see as many people from as many whatever offices that are existing now throughout the county that we're renting, as many of those brought downtown, so that it makes the building more vibrant, and those people are then gonna go shop downtown, and I wanna bring as many people and as many offices in there as possible. That makes sense, and even if some of them are smaller, I'm okay with that.
I kind of like the idea of bringing the public in for other reasons, and having some kind of concession, and I'm wondering if where we have the conference room kind of in the middle off of this restroom that we're gonna divide up, there's plumbing already probably in this wall, it would make sense to put the concession where we have the conference room here and this other left side restroom, make that the conference room, and this could be more open. Well, I guess those are existing walls, but it is in the middle of the building, it's inviting because it's right there in the middle, near the stairs and the elevator. If we were going, if there's consensus on the board that that would be a nice thing to do and to have, this would be the space for that, I think.
One thumbs up. How do you feel about Supervisor's house?
Conference room here, concession here.
Could we say, because having a concession, I just don't think we have enough, I mean, have you considered that as a possibility yet? Okay, so that's something brand new that we need to look into, so I'm open to it as a concept or an idea. But the primary thing for me would be getting office space. I'm okay with, I think that would make it actually an excellent conference room. It's the giving up that square footage for a conference room is,
So, just, yeah, and remember, we do, I mean, just so we can weigh in, we would rather see them make those offices bigger. There are other conference rooms, as Supervisor Brandon, all of you alluded, there's a lot of them that we've created space. They could simply go to another floor if they needed to, but it would give them, or they could be big enough, they could meet with 2 to 3 people in their office as well, if they had a bit more room in there, rather than another conference room is what I'm getting at.
so could we say office space there and I'm just coming up with a term, alternative usage?
Or open space to be determined? Yeah.
It's
If that's-
possible, we'll look at the configuration of that whole square that square as a whole to see what could you get in there. It's possible maybe you get 4 instead of 3, for example. And which is kind of what I think you're getting at is, can we get more space out of that if at all needed?
Because this, we already have a conference room right here that's fairly large.
And you have an open space over here.
Oh, yeah.
Right, so don't
Completely
forget
covered
about that. Right. So, as the county administrator says, so I think what I'm hearing from
I believe you've captured, so the existing women's restroom would become a conference room, if I'm hearing this correctly. Okay, so that's gonna expand the office space, not a conference room, is that correct?
That's what we're asking.
Okay.
That whole square could be used for office space.
The other space that's identified there near the elevator, right, we're just open at this point, whether that'll end up being conference space or whether some enterprise.
hearing from a few of you is, what I'm kind of hearing from you, from the group, and correct me if I'm wrong, is right now, let's open this up and to be determined at a future date. This is the main access, so if the public was coming in from the main door, this is the way that they would get to the elevator. There is, I believe roughly 5 feet, here to here, 5, 6 feet? 6 feet here, so just to give you an idea. So not having this here would really open it up. And then what I'm kind of hearing from the group is then divide this into men's and women's. Does that sound good? Okay.
Correct. Yes, I'm good with that.
Just to clarify on that, for what it matters, I think as we're looking at the concession in that conversation, we would have to plan for that to be built in this. If we leave it as just an open space, it'll be a lobby or put a desk in it or something. I'm not sure that would ever come to fruition. So for me on that, I would kind of want to see those tied together. And I didn't really say it in my initial comments there, but we do have, like I said, gendered individual restrooms all throughout the building. We've got a lot of restrooms in this building on every floor. We just don't have the traffic the same. I don't see the need for a very large men and women's restroom rather than just having one where we need office space. Kind of in line with Supervisor Campbell's comments. If we can increase office space, that's the goal. So, anyway.
I think I got consensus then on floor 1. And then with floor 2, I didn't hear any changes in this floor. And so let's go to, I think real quickly, we'll go to the mezzanine.
Everybody's favorite floor.
Woohoo! So as we talked about, one thing, as Tracy mentioned, that we as staff have been excited about is this break room on this floor. Right now, if you go over to the facility, there's it is a low ceiling. There are half windows in this space, and it's very chopped up. What we are looking for is the ability as staff to be able to gather together to have a meal. If we want to do that right now, we're coming into the board chambers, and that's not conducive to then the schedule for the board chambers, or smelling food, or having our garbage here. And so for us, having one main area in which we can get away from our offices for that break time and doing it, this is why we recommended to the architects that we'd really like to be able to have that space. So I'm here to ask any questions, comments.
It's kind of like a dollhouse break room, especially for some of us who are 6 foot what, Michael?
I'm fine with that space being a break room and the rest of the mezzanine set up as it is with the IT area. As long as supervisors have an invite to use the break room too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's a great use of that space. For anybody here fans of Being John Malkovich, it's a movie that came out a while ago. Okay, there's a scene where the guy gets a job in a building and it's like a half floor and you have to crouch down to get it. It's got a little bit of that feel there. So I don't think that space is really the best for public usage. And it doesn't, it's not particularly attractive, but for setting it aside so employees have a place that they can have meals together and relax on break time, I think that's really critical and something we're kind of missing right now. So it's a real improvement and makes it a more attractive place to not only visit but to work. So I'm very much in support of.
I don't think being tall is a disability, but I think that if it was, this would violate ADA. I'm not in favor of this being a break room. I think spending, especially recreationally, amount of time there's a reason we don't build 7-foot ceilings, even though 95% of people are not over 7 feet. There's a psychological kind of issue with that that I think honestly, I think this should be storage space, and some of the other spaces in the building that may be used for storage, especially since we have an elevator right there, that's where this should go to. If I do agree we should have a break room, and that should be something for staff, whether or not that's with a kind of cafe thing on the bottom level. I know it's maybe skipping ahead, but it's related. To the next floor, we have a conference room on the top left corner. I think that's a more appropriate space with light, with a normal ceiling to be able to have a break room that feels good. I wouldn't want us to make a cave in the middle of the building.
So no man caves, huh? I have a question for county council. Is this legally acceptable as a break room? The size and the height?
That's my understanding. We haven't looked at it more closely than that, but I understand that staff has worked with Brian Bell, our code compliance officer, for ADA type issues, so that is my understanding. It's fine.
Mo, Tracy, Sarah, anybody can answer this, Liz. Have staff that would be occupying some of the offices that we're talking about expressed any interest in having a conference room, and are they amenable to the idea that's presented here? Yeah. Okay, so the people that we're talking about that are going to be working in this building are supportive, that would be utilizing it?
So over the last 2 weeks, I have taken most of the staff from from this floor over there, and we've walked through the facility with plans in hand, and really seeking their input in as far as all the floors. And when we got to this, there were jokes, yes, of course, about the ceiling, but again, as both Tracy and I have expressed, they were excited about having a room in which they can go that wasn't at their desk to eat, to sit, to take their breaks, and be out of the public way. There are some people right now, if they're eating at their desks, and we all work different schedules and work different hours, and so it's really hard for some of us to tell when someone is at lunch or not. So we're interrupting people's lunches. So we are, as staff, excited to have a break room like this.
Just had a question on that. Are staff excited to have a break room to be able to do that, or are they excited about this space? Because I've heard the kind of the same comments. Was an option presented for it to be one that has actual windows? It has half windows on the floor, right? They're windows, I think they're about 2.5 feet off the ground, and they're
Right, so there's-
divided in the middle by the floor, right? So they're not really
Absolutely, super
windows you can
branded.
sit and look out. They're windows that kind of,
You can see out the windows. They are half windows, though. I think, as far as the staff is concerned, we didn't explore any other, as we did the tours, we didn't look at any other, or I didn't present to them any other rooms. As we went through the different rooms, though, and the different floors, especially the first and second that impact the other staff that was going through it, we liked the space that we had in regards to conference rooms and the adjacencies to other staff members. And for the most part, the size of the offices were okay. And they understood that we were making some compromises by being in the historical building.
We'll combine the mezzanine with the third floor for public comment.
So with the third floor, as Tracy mentioned, there were two options that are kind of as staff being presented to your board based on comments that I received from the 5 board members. The first option is one in which we were looking at trying to, again, just like in floors 1 and 2, group the Board of Supervisors together in offices. The spaces are not very big. They're kind of small, but it keeps you, having the 5 offices grouped like this keeps you off of the main corridor. It gives you a break from the public if needed. We also, over the years, have talked about security. And this provides a certain level of security for the Board of Supervisors. So someone coming up to the 3rd floor would either come through and get off and access the floor through the elevator or the open stairway in the middle of this hallway area. What we've done is put the board clerk right off the elevator section. We are proposing to put, if you will, like a pony wall with glass in the front with a counter, so that person can meet and greet and provide logistics as necessary. for anyone coming up to visit the board or if they're attending the Board of Supervisors meeting. Right next door to it, as a result of having smaller offices, we looked at creating a board meeting area. It was, I didn't want to call it a conference room, it was just a meeting area in which there could be one or two chairs on one side, tables, enough for at least 4 or 5 people to meet. If the Board of Supervisor didn't want to meet with someone behind this area or in their offices, again, because the offices are fairly smaller than what most of you have right now, we wanted to create that space. Moving along the front of the building, we created a conference room up here, again, for dual purposes. One, for your board to have your closed sessions in. When you are meeting on certain items, it gives an opportunity to go to an area, especially if the closed session is in the middle of the day and we still have people in the board chambers. We didn't want to have to kick members out of the board chambers for that. We wanted to be able to give you a space for that. And the other really neat thing is we do occasionally have items in which there are large members from the public attending the meeting, and we wanted to have an overflow area in which they weren't necessarily hanging here in the lobby area right around the door, but wanted to be able to provide them with a space in which they can sit down and watch the proceedings from another room. Off of that, we did a storage and restrooms, janitor closets. The other thing that we wanted to create for your board, there are 2 restrooms up here, but I know oftentimes during board meetings, sometimes you don't have a lot of time between breaks. Sometimes nature just calls during a meeting, and I wanted to be able to provide your board easy access to a restroom off of your suite. And so that's what we did. As far as the Board of Supervisors chambers, we've been talking about it a little bit, and there's been a lot of questions. So the dotted line that you see in front of here, this is on the one side is the jury deliberation room as it stands right now, and this is an old courtroom on the other side. And what we are proposing right now is to open up that whole room to be able to give and create a board chambers for you. Off of that room, as you can see, 2 doors for the public, and then there is a door off to your suite, if you will. So before I take questions on this, let's go to option 2. In option 2, the board chamber stands as what was presented in option 1. Your conference room, restroom, storage area remains the same. And then the rest of this floor is changed. So instead of having all 5 board chamber offices in one area, what we did is only, instead of 5, have 3 in this area. And what we did is, we don't think that's going to work, right? It's going to be tight. Most likely what I'm being told by the architects, Mo is being creative here, is this room right here is, as you can see, 59 square feet. It's a little bit small. What we would do is the same configuration that we did in option 1, is put the Board of Supervisors restroom out in this hallway. But there would be just 3 offices here. That way we would then have office number 1 and office number 2 for Board of Supervisors out here. The upside is that the Board of Supervisors offices are much larger than what we had in option 1, but it also puts 2 supervisors out in the main hallway as people come through here, and it doesn't give you any additional privacy. So that's the difference between really option 1 and option 2 for the 3rd floor.
Sorry, just something else for your board to think about is this also puts your board clerk out in the open with the public while they're also trying to do work. So before, we had tried to create that area where there was a window where they could be greeted, they could see what's going on, but you're gonna have your copier, your fax, your shredder, all of that is in there. But you remember this person is doing, for example, 19 credit card reconciliations. So they do need time, they have to be able to focus, and this will be that corridor of people coming in from the elevator. So just something to think about. as you work through this scenario.
Okay, so your board's pleasure. Do you want to start with the philosophy of having the 3 offices and the 2 offices out here versus having all 5 there? I think, and then we can move to the board chambers.
What I think I'd like to do is have the board members ask questions only right now.
Okay.
Then I'd like to go to the public so we can take into consideration what they have to say before we make our comments.
Absolutely, sounds good.
Okay, so what questions does anybody have on the 3rd floor and/or the mezzanine? And if there are none, we'll go directly to the public.
Sure.
Go ahead, Supervisor Brandon.
So I want to ask, there's a wall currently between,
What floor are you on?
I'm on the 4th floor, 3rd floor.
3rd floor?
Can we just call it the 4th floor instead of a 2.5 floor?
Go ahead.
Mezzanine. Okay. We have this back area here. We have a wall, and that separates it from the judges' chambers currently. I'm just assuming it's cheaper to not take out that wall. It doesn't have to be taken out, right?
You mean the jury room?
Yeah.
Jury deliberations?
So, okay.
Take into consideration, though, that board chambers, even if you do make that a pony wall that comes down slightly from the ceiling, it's still going to be smaller in square footage than this boardroom. Okay, just want to make sure.
Questions only.
You're right, questions only.
I also wanted to ask in option 1, do all the board offices have basically an exterior window?
All but one, and that's because the elevator will be, then, once we install the elevator will be obscuring that one window that we have it, but the other 4 will.
Okay, those are my other 2 questions.
But it gets to be closer to the bathroom. So,
Right by it, even better.
it's a downside, maybe. I just have one question. So from an impact perspective, the least impactful to the original layout is option 1, where we're maintaining the wall, separating the historic courtroom with the jury deliberations room.
No,
That's why because I'm just confused by the pictures, because we still have the line
okay, and we
on
don't on
option
the other
1,
one.
and on option 2,
Sorry.
we don't.
So in both of the options,
Okay, I get that. Okay, so if we wanted to maintain that wall, that's a departure from what you've presented to us. Okay, thank you. Take your pen.
Okay, neither I nor Supervisor Goldenberg have any questions. And that's for the mezzanine or both options of the 3rd floor, is that correct? So we all done with questions? Okay, I'd like to move to the public now for comments on the mezzanine and both options of the 3rd floor.
Yeah. I think the break room in the mezzanine is, will people really go up there and use it? There's no restroom up there. I think you should have the break room on the same floor as a restroom, for sure. So I guess Jaren's idea of a storage is best for that. So where do you move your break room? Well, at each level, it's kind of broke off in 4 little squares. So I guess you would just pick the level you feel you want your break room on and take one of those squares and try to find another spot for those conference room, offices, or whatever. I would say maybe on floor 3, but I don't know if you really want your break room on the same floor that the Board of Supervisors and all the public's coming in. So it's not really a good idea. So the only spot would be if you did pick floor 3 is the square that's by itself off to the end that would be a spot maybe. But I still think your restroom should be by the elevator on each floor. 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever. So on floor 3, it would be where the board clerk office, if you're on option 1, and your meeting area, instead of moving them over to the corner again, I don't see the logic unless they are already restrooms like it was brought up before, and they probably could be restrooms already. And if that is the case, then it would probably be cheaper. So I guess and the smaller chambers, I don't know. I don't think it should be smaller, but so it should be that whole space with that wall taken out for sure. So I guess my biggest point is I don't think people will use that break room up there. That's all.
Thank you.
Sharon Maravich from the Tuolumne Heritage Committee. Everything you've discussed today is totally on point if you were building a new building. That's not the case. And also, too, all the amenities and things that you discussed today are in this building. You don't have to recreate them. Using Lionakis's comprehensive work to date presents an excellent opportunity to reflect on how to keep the courthouse a working part of the county government and respect its role in American history as reflected on its nomination and inclusion in the National Register of Historic Places. The Tuolumne Heritage Committee submits our suggestions at this study session, and we've provided you all with this material, in the belief that the demolitions of historic, original concrete and brick walls and the extensive wall building that's going to have to go on all 3 floors, as shown on Lionakis's plans, can certainly be carried out, but at a significant toll on the legacy, this legacy building's unique features and its aesthetics. These impacts can largely be avoided and time and money saved if the CAO, the supervisors, and the county council remain in the administration building and other offices, which we've mentioned in here, are moved into the courthouse. And it would clear out the entire 3rd floor of this building and give more space here. It's interesting to note that the assessor, recorder, and treasurer tax collector, which function much like they did 125 years ago, which is in open spaces and generally not requiring cubicles, we're suggesting that that go on the 2nd floor of the courthouse. The Superior Court Unit, which is the courtroom, the jury room, and the judge's chambers, is the single outstanding character-defining feature of this building and why it's called a courthouse and not an office building. The committee's ideas for the 3rd floor are shown on what we gave you. The Tuolumne Heritage Committee views this capital project as a legacy project in a legacy building by the Board of Supervisors and the county staff as stewards of our public heritage resources. Please rejoice in the opportunity you have been given to bring about a renaissance for the courthouse that embraces the past, the present, and the future. The county will surely be rewarded with the public's goodwill, gratitude, and support. I want to show you this picture that was drawn in 1963 by an architect that the county hired. This is how they were going to solve the space problems. In addition to the east side of the courthouse that spanned across Green Street and wiped out half of Courthouse Square. This is basically where I see you are right now. Please turn the ship of state away from this kind of a concept and back into the sensitivity and the beauty and the history that you have in the palm of your hands to do something with that will glorify not only the building, keep it a working building at 2.5 floors.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Terry Brela. I am the chair of the Historic Preservation Review Commission, but I'm not speaking on their behalf today. I'm just speaking as a member of the public. I just want to remind you that it is the role of the HPRC to consult on these renovations at all points. And you will decide what you will do with the building, and that will be that. but please respect the historic fabric so far as is possible. When I hear things like glass walls, the hackles on the back of my neck, separating the board clerk or whatever, kind of go up. And I envision something like we've done here. That building deserves better. So, and my second point would be that this is all already slightly over budget, and that's only going to continue. And the longer it goes on, the worse that problem will become. So be mindful of that. Be sure that you aren't cutting corners, or that you don't put yourself into a position where you have to cut corners. And that's my time.
Thank you.
I probably should have mentioned this on first and second floor. There was a comment that there's an awful lot of conference rooms. There's a big demand for conference rooms in Tuolumne County. Service clubs have nowhere to go. So if you really want to make this kind of a public house and have the public take part in it, that's your avenue.
I'm Doug Boyack, and I'm not here to speak on behalf of other judges. I'm here to speak on behalf of myself and certain ones who met together at Mrs. Marovich's house last week. Judge Dutemple and Judge Pauley were hoping to be here. They had some very pressing family issues that didn't permit them to be here. I am not in my court attire. I'm not here with my white shirt and bow tie on. I'm here to speak to you as one person to a board, and I truly appreciate the service that this board gives and others, pardon me, on behalf of the county. I know you have a very difficult job. You are at a crossroads here, and what we have is the opportunity, as has been mentioned before, to preserve something of wonderful historic value. This courthouse across from us was built at great sacrifice to our pioneer forefathers. It represents their symbol of law and justice. We came out of a very rough and tumble pioneer era, and their sacrifice in building that structure was their way of declaring to the world how important law and justice was to them and continues to be to everyone here in Tuolumne County. People come here from all over for recreation, for theater, for exploring the background. They come here for history. They come here for Railtown 1895, for Columbia State Park. They come here for what Sonora represents. And what it represents is embodied in that structure right behind us. And if we are turning that into an office building, we are turning our back on the people of Tuolumne County and the tens of thousands who come here. They don't have history in their backyard. If you're coming here from the Valley or the Bay Area or Southern California, you don't have history around the corner, and here we do. So I would just urge that you give careful thought to what Mrs. Marovich and others are suggesting, that we have a perfectly functional, probably a better functioning boardroom here than would be by cutting that upstairs, cutting that up across the way. You have, if we moved offices out of downstairs, you have room for all the things you're talking about, which are very important. I appreciate the importance of that. But by preserving that structure, you're preserving something which is of inestimable value to the people in our community and throughout our area. And my pitch, you put enormous time into this, and I appreciate the time you've put into it, but can't we just ask for some real public input? Get people in the community, put out there, here's the options, very viable options. What you're talking about is a very viable option, but there's another one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Andy Merrill again. I just, if I had to choose between the two options that you've put before me, taking other potentialities out of the equation, I think option one is the best. I think having the clerk off the elevator and stuff there, having the window. It's certainly a more secure, more professional looking approach than just having that sort of stuff out in the open. I think in today's climate, that's not really a good idea, and it just, yeah. But on Judge Boyack and Ms. Marovich's point, I want to preserve the building just as much as anyone, but we're not using it as a courthouse anymore. So what are the alternatives? Well, we have an alternative here, and I just haven't heard anything, and perhaps this is why we should go to more public comment, but if we don't use it as office space, if we don't use this building as a Board of Supervisors, chamber, what are we going to use it for then? And I don't legitimately have any good suggestions for that. I think the grandeur of the building and that historic quality, it certainly, I think, would be a hell of a lot more inviting than this room. Not that this room isn't inviting, it's just, it's going to be awe-inspiring compared to this. So I see that as personally respecting that historical relevance and significance that the building has, but we're not handcuffing the future just for the sake of keeping everything the same. The overwhelming skeleton is still going to be there. We're not talking about changing the silhouette or our city's skyline. We're just changing what happens within those walls. And if I had to choose between nothing, which is what's happening right now, and conducting meetings like this in a truly historic, awe-inspiring building, I'm going to choose that option personally. Not, again, that I don't like this building. It's just, when you picture like a seat of government, I picture a building like the courthouse. I don't picture a building like the administration building here. So, again, if we're never going to use it as a courtroom again, if it's never going to be used as its original purpose again, and I think most people here can agree, then what are we preserving? Is it just going to be an empty building for the rest of the time? So I just... Maybe, again, I'd love to get more public input on what we could do with the building, but in lieu of that, I don't think this is at all a bad idea, and it could lead to a significant government renaissance, not just for government, but for the greater good of the city of Sonora and Tuolumne County. It could be a very impressive county seat. So please don't be discouraged to act boldly and think of the future and not let us be dragged down and, what should we do when we have a solution in front of us?
Thank you. Well, I've said many times that you have not sought public input. All these plans have taken place out of the purview of the public. And then we come in here and you kind of want to cram it down our throat. So I agree with Judge Boyack in many ways that you should ask us what we want, because I haven't heard anybody in here, and I couldn't quite follow everything Andy was saying. But I believe the original purpose of that building was not originally as a courthouse. It was as office buildings for the county, or as an offices for the county. But I believe you should have a lot more public comment. And what does the public want to see with this building? And it's really disappointing that there's 5 of us here and not more. But it's 1:30 on a work day. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I'll bring it back to the board for your comments. Supervisor Goldenberg, are you ready? You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. He said no. Oh, okay. All right, and really appreciate the comments. I think this is a very worthwhile discussion, and I'm pretty much everybody that spoke said things I agree with, so that's a good starting place. I think the reason why we're here today is because we all care so much about this structure, and we all recognize that it plays an important role in our community with respect to the history and the heritage and the people that came before us. And so My personal view on it, as I've said many times, is that I believe the best way to honor that heritage is to not treat it like a porcelain doll, but to actually use it in a way that has life, that is vibrant, that has relevance in our community, and the day-to-day operations of serving the people of Tuolumne County. And so in that sense, my thoughts go very much to that most historic of courtrooms on the third floor. And I think both options here, and that's why I asked the clarifying question, both options here discuss the removal of that wall that separates the jury chamber with the main courtroom. And I probably no other element have I spent more time going back and forth about the reasons to do it and the reasons not to do it. I think it's a very reasonable idea to think that we need as much space as possible. If the public is going to utilize that space, there needs to be room for people to be there. But I was just in this room, in that courtroom about a few hours ago, and looking at it and standing at what is the current judge's bench, and hopefully someday it will be a Board of Supervisors dais. And I think the outline of the room as it is now is sufficient for the needs that we have. And I think removing that wall or modifying that wall in such a way to accommodate additional seating, it's a bridge too far for me, because I think that really will change the character of that space from a historic perspective. And I don't know if this is getting into operations or not, but I kind of include in that some of the woodwork in there, including the seating, the historic seating, the jury box. I think those seats are not pinned down. They're just regular chairs in the jury box. So I think keeping the outline of the jury box and all the woodwork and just modifying the space within it, I think is to suit staff, I think is possible. And adding additional Americans with disabilities seating where possible, where that makes sense. Otherwise, leave it the way it is. And additionally, adding, of course, a lectern for the public to address the board, and modifying the bench in such a way that we can accommodate a 5-member board. So with all those elements, I think we can balance what that space was and keep the feel of an old town courthouse, which is exactly what I think I think what we all have in our head is that idea of a courtroom where you hear the creaking floors and you sit in a slightly uncomfortable chairs, maybe talking about uncomfortable subjects, but we do it in a communal way that reminds us of the people that came before us. So long story short, I'm having a hard time agreeing with the concept of removing that wall. So that leaves us with, what do we do with the space behind it? Well, we have a conference room outlined in the upper, north, upper left on this, and I need a compass, so. Yeah, okay, north, this is north. Okay, so the northeastern corner, we have a conference room up there. No, that'd be east. No, that's north.
That's why we say upper.
Because see, this is facing the Yaney Street. So that's north. So the northeast conference room, I think could be more offices. Again, I don't know what would go in them, but that, again, is operations. Or using it as a community space for a variety of purposes. So that goes to, and there was a comment made in the public about the board clerk room having a glass wall or partition. That concerns me as well. I don't know if there is a way and what the costs would be involved to make that a place that is safe for the employee while also keeping the character of the structure in place. But that would be something I would be looking at. Well, I don't know. I'm not Lainakis, so. But looking into options there to maintain the character without it, to maintain their historic character. I'm comfortable with the small Board of Supervisors offices, and the fact that one of the offices won't have a window in it. I think, that we really shouldn't be spending most of our time in the office anyway. As servants of the public, we should be out in the community. There are reasons why you need to get in there to, send emails and do kind of the nuts and bolts things, have meetings with constituents. But I'm perfectly comfortable. It's more important to me to occupy a historic space than it is to have a big office. So, long story short on that. And then I like the positioning of the restroom. I think our community is a very kind and it's a very safe community, but I think planning for the future and the way things have been changing and making sure that we are current with the times is important when it comes to safety. Apart from that, I think we should be doing everything possible to maintain the current character. Well, not the current at the moment character, but the historic character of that space. And yeah, and that, what do I need to tell you about? So that would be the conference room. That would be where the Board of Supervisors would meet in closed session, and any board meetings with constituents or with staff would take place there. And it could also be utilized for other staff, non-board of supervisor purposes if possible.
I'm going to go right after Supervisor Campbell. We'll include him. How do you want to do this?
I'm okay with
How do you want? We'd have to open up public comment again. Yeah. You haven't had the presentation made, so would your comments be, have you seen the plans in order and you? Okay, let's bring a microphone to you.
Thank you. That'd be fine to reopen.
And I need to, hold on just a minute, I need to reopen public comment so that you can make those comments. Thank you.
All right, thank you. First of all, I wasn't asking for a special accommodation. I'm not even here in my capacity as a presiding judge. And I want to make that clear, that I'm here just as a regular citizen of the county. I apologize that I couldn't get here sooner because I got stuck on with the jury trial I couldn't get out of. But so I'm not here speaking on behalf of the court, and I'm not here speaking on behalf of any current or retired judges. I'm speaking on behalf of myself. All right? I appreciate you, out of respect, letting me get a word in here. What's that? Oh, yeah. I've visited many historical places in the United States and throughout the world. There's a reason people go to these historical sites, because there's something special about those spaces. As an example, I went to Valley Forge. There's a stone farmhouse there that is like hundreds of other stone houses that are throughout the country. There's one that's important, though, because George Washington had his headquarters there during the Revolutionary War for some period of time. When I think of our courthouse, I think of that some of the most important things that ever happened in this county in the since 1892, sorry, happened in that very department where you're talking about putting a supervisor's chamber. Divorces, murder trials, adoptions, for over 100 years, that was the place that it all happened. And we talk about being in the room where it happened. That is where we're going to be doing this work. And all I'm suggesting is that everything be done possible to make it still look like that historic courtroom. That if somebody came that wasn't familiar with what had been done, they would walk in and say, wow, this is a historic courthouse and a historic courtroom. And the same with regard to the chambers that were the judges' chambers. I think of the number of decisions that were made by men sitting in that room. I say men because I don't think any of our female judges ever sat in that chamber. But there's a reason why we protect historical things. And just to say that, one quick thing, I had a little quote here that I wanted to read. almost out of time, so let me hurry it up. We're a community, we are a community that prides ourselves on our history. The historic courthouse is that jewel of our history. It sits in a prominent spot in our society, in our town. Historic preservation is a conversation about our past and about our future. It provides us with the opportunity to ask important things. Those who make policy, like you at this board, have an interest in preserving community history and seeing historic resources as a community asset. I don't think there's any doubt that this is a community asset that needs to be preserved in a way that makes it clear that we care about what happened in that room.
Thank you. Yeah. All right, so I'm going to close public comment. Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to go next because my comments are very similar but somewhat different from Supervisor Campbell. I'm also of the opinion we need to go with option number 1. But because the ceiling is different in the back room, in the jury room, I am in favor of preserving part of that wall from the top down. What do they call that? A pony wall? Is that what they call it? I don't know what they call it, but you know where you bring it. Yeah. I don't know if that would be 12 inches, 18 inches, whatever makes sense, because that's a tall ceiling there, so it wouldn't impair the view of those that are sitting back here. Like I said, my comments are very similar to Supervisor Campbell. I want to preserve as much as possible the historic nature of that courtroom. It should still have a feel, and I like the idea of blending where the judge's seat is with the rest of the Board of Supervisors there, and keeping the jury box and that sort of thing. And as whatever we can do to kind of preserve the historic nature. I'd like to see, you know how, I think it's the 7th graders that come and do the mock court. I'd like to see this continue to be used for that. And so I would not be in favor of making the conference room where the jury room is. I think the overflow room and the closed session room needs to be where it is right now, where the conference room in the upper left-hand corner of the floor plans. I like the smaller, well, I don't like, but I think having all of the board offices together makes sense. We didn't talk too much about this extra little meeting area right here. I see that as kind of like a lounge where we can meet with other representatives, whether they're from Congress or from, our state or other people that we want to have a more relaxed sit-down conversation where we're on sofas and comfortable chairs rather than around a conference room like a conference table like we would have over here. I think that makes sense. And then we'd have a couple of places to meet with constituents if there were more than one of them, because our offices probably would not accommodate them. I'm fine with the mezzanine level being as it is. And I just want to say something. My background is being very practical, and I know most people don't see government and being practical as the same thing. But I don't want to see the courtroom preserved where it can only be used as a historical monument. We have leases and rents that we pay that we can't really afford right now. We need to move those people out here, which means we have to move people from here to there, so we save taxpayer dollars. So I think there's a happy medium here where we can get all these things done, and I'm looking for a way to do that. And so that is the basis of all of my comments. Thank you.
All right. So mezzanine, I'll just start with that first. I think that was part of this, right? I'm good with it as shown with the break room opportunity there. I realize it's not the ideal space, but I think would be appreciated. access for the employees, from the third floor, it's, a short, steps down. Coming up, the first floor is the ones that have to go a little bit further to get there, but anyways. Regarding the third floor, overall, I like option one as far as the location of the board members' offices. Let me jump to the chambers itself. And Judge Siebert, I appreciate your comments. I've traveled pretty extensively, both in the U.S., Caribbean, several trips to Europe, and seen a lot of historical buildings. And it's really nice when they're put to public use while at the same time preserving, what's there. And I think we've got some real opportunities to do exactly that with that third floor courtroom especially. I'd like to see all those chairs stay exactly as they are. We may need to do some shuffling. There's some pretty good space between where the chairs are and the front where the judge used to sit, which would now be the board. That rear wall, in looking at the room and counting chairs and layout and looking at room for staff, right now our chairs, the way they're set up currently today, now we obviously put in these tables, but there was about 48 chairs currently in the historic courthouse. That's set up as 70, with those existing chairs. And perhaps they could be moved forward. I understand there might be some chairs of similar style in one of the lower levels that could even be moved up to create an extra row or two. I'd like to keep that wall, that's in the back, and that would be part of the preservation. The jury box area, I could see that we could have that, staff seated there, keep the jury box. I concur with Supervisor Campbell as far as looking at ADA issues and providing a means for public, because with those current chairs, it would be very difficult unless they were sitting right on an end seat, and even then, they might have a very hard time getting into one of those chairs. So, where that space would be, that's more of something that would be looked at, down the road when we lay this out, a little bit better. I did hear, and maybe Supervisor Campbell can concur, that there might be a solid wood flooring underneath the existing.
I pulled up the carpet and there was wood underneath it, so.
Okay. So I'm intrigued by that, and, would like to see if that is the case, that become a part of the project to, bring that out and enhance it. I think that, overall, we could keep that room looking very, very close to what it is now. If it was done carefully, with due consideration for the comments, and there's, there's going to need to be some efforts on all floors, to do various things. All the wonderful flooring that, you're seeing in the building, the staircase, it's fantastic. I want to see the public using it. And I think this is a good way to do so. Not just, this third floor is obviously very, very important. And the most, it's just a wonderful, wonderful, room. Other than that, I like the little board meeting area in the top kind of center of the diagram. Maybe a small table, 4 to 5 chairs, whatever, for a more intimate meeting with, people. I do like the idea of, if we keep that wall, that back room, be a good area for closed session as well as conference room. Which would leave, potentially the other conference room in the top, let's call it northeast corner, available for whatever we decide we want to use. I don't think that needs to be decided now. it could be additional office space, it could be more storage. You know, I see one storage area, and I see a lot of areas where we have a lot of stuff, so I'm not necessarily convinced we have enough storage area currently. You know, so anyways, that's my thoughts. I would really like to see the public be able to use the building, and throughout the building, we've looked at, they're identified, well identified by the, you know, historical committee, you know, all the vaults, you know, and we're even looking at, you know, some of the old heating units, the radiator, you know, type stuff. Some of those might be in the way. Some of them, and maybe they're hooked up, but some of them could even be moved, you know, slightly to one side or the other. And, you know, we want to keep every aspect we can of historical importance intact. So those are my comments.
Brandon.
Great. Just to echo it, thanks for our guests for attending, speaking up. Thank you to both judge and former judge for attending and providing your comments too. I think the history is very important to the building. A lot of that's been said. I think the best way to keep it preserved, though, is to use it. At the end of the day, we have a building that is somewhat rotting, and we have examples of that around the county where we haven't been able to figure out something that is a viable way to ensure it's got money for maintenance. I wish we had a large historic preservation budget. I think this is an efficient way to utilize it and to be able to protect that space and avoid as much as we can any basically permanent changes that can't be removed. So if that ever comes up, we have that opportunity. So looking at that, I'm kind of in the middle of both. I pretty strongly believe in most of what option 2 presents. I think if, you know, it's weird if we're saying that we don't need a much office space because we want to be in the community, but then we need a restroom or a private restroom, which is one of the options there. I know here we use the public restroom. I did so 7 minutes ago. It was fine. I think that that's appropriate that we even have offices that come out into an area that allows us to interact with people. That's kind of our job. I looked forward, actually, my predecessor had one that would have entered into the lobby, but Mo stole it. I thought that would have been a very cool office to have. And I'm not blaming, I'm not bitter about it. I got a cool, it's really nice, not bitter, but I remember. No. I thought that was an actually kind of a nice thing. I can somewhat understand the security concern, but that can be used for, I think, any employee in the building. I just don't see the reason why we would need maybe special treatment with that. So looking at the board chambers, I think the cheapest option and the least destructive is to retain that back wall. I initially didn't think we should do that because I thought we needed the space for seating. But as Dave had mentioned in doing the count, this does expand the seating from what we basically currently have in this room. That to me is adequate, right? From 48 to about 70 in there when we were counting, or so. I think the one behind that area would make a great break area. The reason being is it's a nice place with good windows, but part of it too is we may notice we have a lot of staff who are at our meetings in case something comes up, who are sitting in the back, but would probably benefit from a work area very close to the board chambers that they could do, email or whatever they need to, come present and be on call quickly, but not necessarily have to be at folding plastic tables with movable chairs. That could be a great dual purpose for the break room, and then otherwise be a good spot out of the way. I think we got to start slaying conference rooms. We've got this board chambers sofa meeting room. I think we can go to a restaurant or a coffee shop or any of the conference rooms, and I think this conference room needs to be office space because that's at a premium. And I do really like the idea, and I've been kind of keeping in the back of the brain for all of these floors of what Arthur brought up, of the vertical integration of the bathrooms. Now, I look over here, and I think that would be recycling all the materials as much as possible to make it. That just seems like it would be very efficient and easy to plumb. It makes me wonder, these restrooms, when we look down on the first floor, the decision we made to potentially demolish that wall, if that is a wall with plumbing in it, how does that affect these restrooms up here? Are we going to have to replumb that through the very same walls? in every floor makes sense to have a bathroom in that single spot and then move the other stuff around. So, another thing as well, I agree with the ADA comments for the seating. I think that's something that should definitely be incorporated to have at least a couple spots, wheelchair accessible, easy. And then on to the balcony, which really isn't on this. We got a bunch of AC units on it, and the door's locked, as we kind of do. I know we live in a liability sphere, but I hope that we can either modify the space or trust people to not jump or fall off of that. For a historic courthouse, it's got a lot of industrial equipment up there. I know there had been proposals before to maybe put that over a covered parking area or in some other spot. I really think we got to improve that and make it to where somebody can walk out and enjoy a fresh breath of air. I mean, we've got a balcony. That's something that, to me, is currently very ugly, and I know we're going to have to redo the AC system anyways. So I guess the last, let me see, break. I think all the offices should have windows as kind of a basic thing. Also related to the need for, I think, a conference room on this floor. One floor below, I mean real floor, not mezzanine, is the law library, which is more or less what we kind of do when we walk to the other side of the building. You ever look at those highway projects that it's like, well, we're going to spend $10 million and it's going to be a 3-minute shorter commute, overall, and we add up all the minutes. I kind of look at it like this: is it's from our offices or from the board chambers to go down the one floor to the law library or any of the other conference rooms is a very minor amount of time. I don't think we need an extra conference room on this floor. I think it's perfectly capable to have closed session in those areas. So.
So who's keeping track? Okay, Mo, go ahead.
Okay, so in regards to the options, either 1 or 2, I have 3 votes for option 1, 1 vote for option 2. As far as taking down the jury deliberation wall, I have 3 that have asked to keep it, 1 to take it down. As far as what to do with the jury room, I have 1 vote turning it into a conference room, 1 vote that it's part of the board chambers, 1 vote that says a break room, and 1 vote that says to be determined. So staff needs some assistance in that regards.
Do we absolutely have to decide that right now? It's going to be preserved as a room. I mean, does that?
To be determined, if that helps.
Some of them are relevant.
Yeah.
Well, and I was also intrigued by Supervisor Brandon's idea of having staff be able, as a kind of a ready room to be able, but privacy so they can do their work and if called upon, easily come into the boardroom.
And the relevance of why we might want to make that decision today is because if we moved the break room type thing to this room, then we still have the mezzanine, and it'd be up to what the mezzanine would be a part of, which is the storage, and the storage is distributed between the other floors. So,
I mean, is there any reason why we can't do all of those things? Because if county staff is using it during, while board meetings are in session, obviously we're not going to be in there using it for closed session, and vice versa when we're in there for closed session. So it could still be a employee workspace / closed session meeting room. Is that palatable? No?
I think it should be a break room, and we should not have it on the mezzanine.
He's saying break room, like that it has like
break room,
tables
work room during the board meetings. I mean, you could have a meeting in there too, but the purpose being it is the area our staff can go escape to because it's
Well,
a pleasant space as well with a bathroom.
We already kind of addressed the break room is because if, if the mezzanine is going to be a break room, then that would mean so if that was going to be a break room, we'd have to go back to the mezzanine issue and then come up with another purpose for that. So I think we would be going backward in terms of figuring out what the purpose is, but I would compromise and say that it could be closed session room.
Yes.
And I mean, I guess if I wouldn't say it would be a formal break room in the sense that it has tables and microwaves, and I don't think that would be really appropriate. Somebody making popcorn right next to the board meeting in session. But, if staff needed to use that space during a board meeting, plus it has the added benefit, it requires the least amount of change to the space. And so not only we're preserving the history of it, but it's also more cost effective to just preserve it the way it is and just put different furniture in there and use it that way. That's all I'm saying.
I think.
Okay, I'd like to comment on that too. Supervisor Brandon, I like your idea of that being the workspace, because that means we don't need as much of this space, because it's going to be smaller than this by far. But I still like the idea of keeping the conference room in the upper left-hand corner, because that can be the overflow room for the public when our chambers are not big enough. And there will be times when our chambers is not going to be big enough. And rather than sprawling out into the lobby, Calaveras has that. Calaveras County and their government center, they have an overflow room that they use as a conference room as well. So I like that idea.
Supervisor Half, if I could just weigh in a couple things and take this how you will. Your staff are not going to feel like it's a break if they're going up to the board chambers for their lunch and their break. They're just not. They're going to want a space away from the board chambers. And the other one is you may remember when you were staff here, we used to have one or two spaces that in our open area that were some workstations for staff, because I did it when I was a director of behavioral health. My recommendation would be use that area for the jury chambers as your closed session, because we need that. This could be this other conference room could be, a Supervisor Brandon, a work area that has multiple connections where people need to connect. They do it mostly wireless, but it could be a place that people could work too. But this area, like we used to do way back when we had a conference room, that was the one we always kept closed off during board meetings, because we knew when the board went to a closed session, that's where we went. And you really need that designated space when you're going to do a closed session, and it's so easy to get right into there. So just a recommendation for you all to consider.
However, we do need an overflow room for some of the times. You could use it for both, okay.
I just wanted to, I don't think we necessarily need an overflow room. And here's the reason. We've got 70 seats in here, which is more than right now. When this room overflows, it goes into the lobby area, which we have a substantial amount of lobby space identified. Let's say that standing room and the chairs all being full and some people in the lobby there, we're now talking well over probably 100 people. If we're saying that we've hit that point and we still need extra space in a 380 square foot room, which is only the equivalent of about 3 of the offices we've been talking about, and an office that we don't think more than 2 people can really sit in with a desk, let's say it can fit 15 people. In the number of times we've had this room full of people and had the outside full, would 15 extra seats have really made enough of a difference to kind of turn that from what might be office space to leaving that as an overflow area? I think it doesn't happen very often, and it's not a very big difference over what already exists.
I'm going to hand this over to Supervisor Campbell, but I want a qualification on the number of seats, because I'm hearing numbers tossed around and I don't know them to be true. So I'd like to hear from the architects how many seats in the smaller chambers now that we're not going to be using the jury room.
So when you guys are counting chairs, you can see in the space here that you're not even using 25% of it. So when I told you earlier that this chambers is smaller than it, just flat area, it is smaller. So you are counting the chairs that are over there, they're packed next to each other. There's not much aisle space, and it's more efficient than the way you guys are using this here. You could put a lot more chairs in this space and put a lot more bodies than you do right now. So when I made that comment earlier today, that it definitely is going to be a smaller space. You are with fixed seating there, so it's going to be less flexible than what you have going on here today. But just overall, this room is larger.
I think the trade-off is that I agree that it is going to be a smaller space, and it's one of the things that I spent a lot of time thinking about, but I think the trade-off is that it's a space with more meaning to it. And I do share your view, Supervisor Brandon, about the conference rooms generally. I'm more of the mind that I want to see offices, I want to see people in them, I want to see people working. I don't want a lot of rooms that are just there in case we need them. I want people in there, performing their functions. That said, I'm okay with the layout as it is because it is a lot easier to turn a conference room into offices than it is some of these other purposes that we're talking about. So if we do say this eastern corner is going to be a conference room, and then at some point, 5, 10, 15 years down the road, we need 3 more offices, the conversion there is a lot easier than it would be for some of these other purposes. So that's kind of, yeah, I don't know. I am kind of struggling with that. If we have a conference room, a meeting area, and then a closed session room, I think that's a little excessive. So I guess we're down to, if we do want the closed session / employee general purpose work room next to the Board of Supervisors, do we still need the conference room? What's your view, Mo or Tracy?
Sorry, this area during a board meeting will have to be off limits because when you go to closed session, we're going to kick people out of there. That would be the only problem here during a board meeting. Now, any other time, it could be used for whatever anyone needs, but we don't typically allow people to work in an area where we're going to come into a closed session because then we're interrupting that.
I'm sorry, but I need to comment on that. We're talking about staff that is currently sitting in the back of this room, utilizing that space. And so if we need to go into closed session, we simply say, staff, you need to exit this room, right? It's not a difficult thing to do. I don't think that's the reasoning.
Well,
So for
I
me,
mean, as members of staff, what are your thoughts on that?
So for me, if I was, it's a lot, for us in this office, it's a lot easier to be able to come in for our items. But for the departments that are off-site, it really is sometimes worth it for them just to spend the day there in your board chambers. We never know when an item is going to come up. We never know when we need to alter the agenda. And so those department heads, those program managers, it would be really nice, besides what we were talking about, the jury box is up in this corner, northwest, east, whatever the corner is, to be able to use it as a conference room, but as staff, to be able to sit and plug in my computer and listen to the presentations that are going on and know when I need to go into the board chambers itself. It's nice also, sometimes you, because of a consultant's time, we need to have closed sessions that are not at the end of the day, or they're at 11:30, or they might be, like, for example, at 9, you might need to start off with it. And so it'd be really nice not to have to kick staff out of here and to really reserve this back, what we know as the jury deliberation room, as your conference room for closed session or for any other meetings you have. Now, in saying that, you could use this, instead of a board meeting area, you could just designate it as an office. Right now, it doesn't matter. It's going to be, as long as you agree that this is an office, and then we can designate it at a later time. But that would be my recommendation to your board, hearing most of your comments.
And that would require minimal changes too.
That's
we're
correct.
Not moving any walls, we're not
Yep.
tearing anything down. Okay, all right. I'm okay with that.
So let's recoup what you heard.
Supervisor Half, would that be all 4 floors, or do you want just this sort of?
Just the top.
So for the 3rd floor, what I heard consensus on is that we're going to go with option 1, which is grouping all 5 supervisors in one area, with the addition of a restroom access off of that area. Then in regards to the Board of Supervisors chambers, what we're looking at is keeping what we know as the courtroom as it is now to stand as is, with leaving the wall between the courtroom and the jury deliberation room as it stands right now. That room, then, the jury deliberation room, would then be used as a Board of Supervisors meeting room, conference room, and closed session. Then what I heard is that you do like having the board clerk over in this corner. What staff was not recommending was a totally glass wall, but having glass up front so that the clerk could have some privacy. As Tracy was saying, it's nice to be able to have some quiet time for that clerk and have some behind the closed doors, but I didn't want a full wall there. We will then have the room right next door to that just be a room to be determined, an office space. Next to that, we will keep that as a conference room, or if needed, an overflow for anyone when we have a lot of members coming for a board item. And then the rest of it stays about the same, and that's what I've heard.
Can I ask a clarification
Yeah.
on the bathroom? It's on. I can speak closer to it.
Yeah, so that
they can
hear a TV then.
Clarification on the restroom for the third floor. So
Yes.
is that option one, which you indicated there was consensus or majority support for, has a separate restroom into the lobby where I think we're talking about the clerk, but then you were mentioning that maybe it would be the restroom that's integrated into the one area with the 5 offices?
So the restroom that is an option, what is in both options is right off the lobby area, but the access would be from the Board of Supervisors area, the 5 offices. So you would
So
be
it
able
would
to
be-
access it just through that area.
But it would be constructing a new restroom in the lobby. We're not talking about the integrated one in the office space here from option 2. Okay. I just wanted to clarify that.
Sure. Okay. I think staff has direction as far as the operations of the building, but I think as the county administrator has asked all of you is, do you wish for the county to continue on with this project? Is it something you want staff to pursue? Like we said, we got back the cost estimate for the elevator, and that's at 1.6 million. So just know that there's gonna be a price tag on this. Staff just wants to be very upfront with you.
We're not asking for you to approve that today. With those contracts will be brought forth to you, so those were just for you to understand that as we move forward. And my understanding is because you spent all the time going through this means that you must want to move forward. But those contracts, the next 2 contracts will be for the elevator, construction documents, and construction management, which we do have. We have the one bid, we have it from Lionakis for the one, but we don't have we haven't put out to bid the elevator yet. We just have the estimate.
Right, we just have the cost estimate for the elevator, so the elevator has been designed, is ready to go to plan review at this point in time, and after that, go out to bid if your board chooses. The next contract that your board will see from staff will be for the Yaney remodel project, and we're gonna divide the contract into 2 phases. The first phase being everything up to, all the design of the building up to bidding. And then the second phase will be construction management.
Go ahead.
Okay. I just wanted to say on that, first, as with consistency with the discussion about a jail or office for the sheriff's department, I think we need to consider all these together. So I'm not comfortable with moving forward in the same category of with that project. I think we have a lot of capital projects. We're talking about them individually, and I think we need to talk about them at the same time with some financial projections on what we're going to have available to us or the grants that are available. So I wanted to throw that out. I do think that the work we're doing and discussing right here is valuable. The design's valuable. At some point, we should do this. But as far as let's spend the time, go put a loan out or an internal loan or anything, I'm hesitant to do that without understanding our full capital picture of the other big projects.
I would respectfully disagree because I wouldn't categorize those projects the same way because we have the option to invest in capital projects for, you mentioned the sheriff's office and some of these other things that we're talking about. We can do those or not, depending on whether the money is available. We can tread water with the situation as it is. That's not always the best practice in county government or maintaining facilities, but it is an option. I don't feel that we really even have a choice with the courthouse. If we don't act now and soon, it's going to continue to degrade, and it's going to continue to fall apart. And the only way to divert that and prevent that is to invest in it. And that can take a lot of different forms. In fact, that's, I think, the nature of the discussion we're having right now is what does that investment look like? But I think we all agree that if we just let it sit there and fester, the cost for repair will continue to increase. And not only that, we'll be losing some of these things that we cherish so much. You know, and you mentioned earlier about some of the other historic structures we have in the county, like the Sonora Dome, which is underutilized, like the, Tuolumne General Hospital, which is maybe not as attractive, but still, a very valuable space, but also very underutilized, and it's going to cost a great deal to improve it. So I just don't want to see the courthouse go the same way, and so I'm in favor of acting as quickly as possible. And even if we don't have an idea of what grants are potentially available, we need to at least decide that we are interested in pursuing that, which I very much am.
Okay, I'm just going to say ditto to all that, but I have a couple of things I want to say. First of all, am I to understand that if the board decides yes today, that the first thing that will be done will be the elevator? Or is that not a proper conclusion?
That's correct. Your plans for the elevator have been completed. They are about to be on their way to the building department for their review and us to be able to pick up a building permit. Right, so the next contract before your board is for this remodel project.
Okay. And do we have a timeline for how long that will take to get those developed from our consultants that are sitting at the table?
And I can't remember
Not to put
just
you
the
on the
plans.
spot, just.
Well, there was 12 months to bidding, I
12
think it
months.
was.
Okay,
yeah, for
okay.
going through the program stage, the schematic design, the design development, and then the construction documents.
Okay. And I'm going to pass this to Supervisor Goldenberg, but there's one more thing I wanted to say, and that is thank you to Mo Frank, our capital projects person, because without doing all the front work that she has done that made the presentation today, our costs would be a lot more. And she has saved the county a lot of money and gotten us together so we don't have to do this after the architects have designed something and we say, no, we want to put this over here, or we want to put that over there. I really applaud your work and thank you so much for doing this, taking this on.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of work went into this already, and this was a good session as far as stepping through this. I got to say that I'm very leery of installing an elevator into a building before we've reached the stage of understanding what the total cost will be. Because if we find ourselves without the ability to pay for what we're suggesting, then we spent a lot of money on an elevator for a building that's, I don't know. I'm very supportive of doing this. I want to do this project, but I would feel more comfortable if we held off on any actual installation of an elevator.
That's the purpose of the construction document,
Right, so the elevator still has to go over to CDD for review, so it's not gonna happen right away. And then we put it out to bid, then we get a contractor, and then they would start. So it doesn't, I don't even know what that timeline would be. It'll be some time.
But what I'm hearing, it's not part of the construction document.
They're separate. We already have construction documents for the elevator. This is construction documents for the inside of the building.
So would we have the construction documents for the inside of the building before construction would begin on the elevator? I think
That could be something your
would that
board
satisfy?
could direct. We could wait. It will, it will escalate the cost of the elevator significantly if you wait.
Okay.
But, and I'm looking at these
Well-
gentlemen and they're nodding at me.
I mean,
So-
in order to use that building, we have to have, it has to be ADA compliant. And so by not building it, the elevator, we're essentially agreeing that that building's not going to be utilized
Or
for
limited
public.
in its use.
Yeah, for public purposes. So I still feel the same way. We almost don't have a choice. We have to find a way to make it happen. And we have a team that's done that in the past, exemplary, making things happen. So, but it was stated earlier that we have to have a level of courage and just decide that this is something that's important enough to put the energy and the resources into. And I feel it does.
So just to that point, staff will crack the whip as much as possible and work with the architects sitting at this table to get through at least most of DD, or schematic design, I should say, schematic design. Okay, schematic design in order to give your board some comfort level in regards to what Yeti building will be based on the location of the elevator. So staff can promise you that.
And then just to follow up, as you've heard me say for the last 5 years, I've asked that the board fund, that the board fund the capital improvement plan, and that's what you're asking for when you want to look at all of these. Ours is over a decade old. However, in lieu of that, what we are preparing is a matrix of all of the capital projects and what we're working on, the status of those projects, and any estimates that we have right now, which we know is always subject to change, so that at least you can look at everything large project-wise that we are working on to kind of see it in its totality. And that's the best we can do without actually having a formal capital improvement plan. And we'll get that done as soon as we can.
To clarify, I'm not requesting a capital improvement plan. I mean a highlight of the handful of major projects that have been brought forward.
Just checking to make sure that this satisfies the nature of our agenda item there.
Yes, it does. And one thing that Tracy and I were just talking about is there will be an environmental review process. So we want to make sure your board's aware of that. Now that we have more direction, staff can actually work on that piece of the process.
So let's go there then. The environmental review process will be another potential for the public to get involved. Is that right?
Right. They will definitely get notice.
So this is not one and done.
Right. And then, of course, every time we bring other documents, construction documents, or other types of things to your board, they will be obviously on the posted agenda.
So multiple times for the public to weigh in.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Well, with that, I think it's 4:15, and that concludes our Board of Supervisors meeting for today. Thank you all very much for attending.